basically talking about how
that's not going to make the show.
It's not going to make the show. All right. I guess I'll go fuck myself.
Welcome to Empire State of Grind, a podcast about the people building the next wave of tech startups in and out of New York City. Please be advised that the hosts of this podcast are practicing lawyers or other professionals in the tech industry, and that some of the guest employers on this podcast may be clients of the hosts. The information and content provided during this podcast are for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal or financial advice, or as the positions or stances of the employers of any of the individuals.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Empire State of Grind, the show where we learn about the people building the next wave of tech companies in and out of New York City. Today, I am joined by Andrew Wojszynski, Director of Solutions Engineering at WIZ, one of the leaders in cloud-native application platforms, and probably the largest growth story in the NYC tech scene of the past few years. We are joined by our awesome co-host Kim Buhay, and together the three of us discuss Andrew's untraditional path into tech, what it's like working at hyper-growth tech companies like WIZ and Datadog, and some of our favorite and key aspects of leadership roles. And of course, we talk about what Andrew thinks makes NYC so different from other places he's lived, and we even get a tip for the best new pizza spot in Brooklyn. Let's go!
All right, thanks. We're here with another episode of Empire State of Grind. I'm joined today by our esteemed co-host Kim Buhay and our guest Andrew Wojszynski, the Director of Solutions Engineering at WIZ.
Great to be here.
Andrew, yeah, great to have you. So why don't we dive into this? So you're at WIZ. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what the company does, the products you have?
Sure. So I guess I'll start with the mission of WIZ. So our mission is really to secure everything that you build and run in the cloud. Okay, so that's a big, broad mission statement. Mm-hmm. When you think about mission statements of companies, a lot of times they're very ambitious, they're very large. Like Google's, for example, organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and searchable for all. Something to that effect. So what does secure everything that you build and run in the cloud actually mean? Right? It really means that we serve the needs of our customers in a way that is first and foremost focused on usability. So we're a SaaS company, we're a SaaS provider, right? And we provide the Gartner term is a CNAPP, a cloud native application protection platform. So again, that's a bunch of words that out of context don't really mean anything. But basically what we do is we scan somebody's cloud environment, we find security issues, we put them in context on a big graph. And a graph here is like kind of like a Facebook friend graph where it's like, Aaron is friends with Kim, who's friends with Andrew. Therefore, Aaron and Andrew are second connections, right? So we find first, second, third connections among resources in cloud environment, and then tell you all the stuff that's maybe wrong with it.
So something's wrong over here, and that could have a related effect to something over here.
Correct. Yeah. Like let's say you've got something that's exposed to the internet, right? So something that's exposed to the internet, bad guys can go and can go and access it. Not bad. People resources need to be accessible on the internet. Bad guys need bad guys use Google too. Exactly. Bad guys use Google too.
Google's for everyone.
Google is for everyone. Exactly. So
is that their tagline?
It should be. Probably not. If the resource is publicly exposed, but it also has a vulnerability on it that's exploitable.
Right.
That's
different
worse.
Story.
That's worse,
yeah.
Right? So if that vulnerability is exploitable, and it has access to a database that carries credit card information on it,
right?
That's really bad. Mm-hmm. That's when you end up on the front page of the New York Times.
And that's why you're saying like the synced connections or whatever is helpful because it tells you not just what is wrong, but what the impact could be.
Exactly. What the impact is, what the blast radius is, what are the attack paths through an environment. And that's really where we began as a company, is establishing, really taking a risk-based approach to security in public cloud infrastructure.
Cool. And we'll jump around a little bit, but like one thing for the audience that's a little different than other companies that have been on here is you guys are quite large now, right? You said you're almost 2,000 employees?
Yeah, so we're looking to exit our fiscal year, which is at the end of January of next calendar year. So we're probably going to exit that right around 1,700 employees. We're kind of north of between 16 and 1700.
That's also ironically probably when this will get posted. So,
well, all right. All right.
Hopefully, maybe ambitious on my end. But
yeah, hopefully we can get all of our hiring done before then.
But what's interesting, right, is like, as many know and those who don't, like this has been a very big growth story in New York over the past few years, probably the biggest. So I thought it was really cool for the show to get someone on that's been there through that growth. So maybe tell a little bit about just when you started to where you are now from a company size, and then I would love to get into like what your role is there.
Sure. Yeah. So, I have a good friend and mentor that actually both of you know. His name is Dustin Lawler, who is an advisor at WIZ.
Yep.
And he called me in, I want to say it was March or April-ish timeframe of 2022. And said, "Hey, I'm advising for this company. I think it'd be really interesting for you. We should have lunch." And I mean, both of you know Lawler. Like he pays for lunch, so I'll always go have lunch with him.
He's also a very knowledgeable foodie. Shout out to Dustin, by the way.
He really is. We went and had Korean barbecue for lunch in Midtown, which
that's a power move.
I was sweating. I was sweating by the end of it.
It was a test.
It was a test, probably. Not only was I sweating from just the intensity of talking to Dustin, his iron
not good for
stare.
Security.
Not yeah, great, exactly.
He's just like, I want to see how fast this guy gets the meat sweats.
Yeah, how fast is he going to break under my questioning? But he said, "Hey, I'm advising at this new company. We sit down, we have lunch," and he's like, "You probably know this company. They're called WIZ." And at this time, WIZ was a relatively small company.
Yeah, a couple hundred people, right?
Yeah. And I was actually working at a competing company, a company called Lacework that recently got acquired by Fortinet. Lacework had just crested about 100 million in revenue. Yeah. So it was doing really well. We had grown tremendously from the 2020 timeframe into the 2022 timeframe and doing really well. We were having a good time. I was having a great time working over there. And Dustin called me, said, you should check out this company. It's like, I don't know about it. But then he showed me a picture of their product. And that's all I needed was I saw the product.
Like the user interface.
It was literally a picture he snapped on his phone and showed it to me. And I go, whoa, like this is how I envisioned this problem being solved. Because I've been working in cloud computing for north of 10 years now. And I always saw this problem of like, tell me how all my resources are connected as a really big problem. I'm not smart enough to go and figure out how to fix stuff like that. But when I saw it, I went immediately,
it's
wow.
Funny. It's like a non-tech background person. Those are the moments where I know someone has a real product too. Because it's like, if I can see what the value is, I don't really even understand how big of the impact it might be. But I agree. It's like that change from like, it's a line of code to it's a visual, impact on what's going on. I think speaks volume.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. Picture's worth 1,000 words, right?
Really, truly. So then I asked Dustin, hey, can you make an introduction for me? I'd love to kind of explore roles, see what's up. And he introduced me to a gentleman by the name of Ford Parsons, who's on my team now at WIZ. And he was a very early employee there. He started in the first few months of the founding of the company. So he was a stealth employee. And he's just such a, I wish, shout out to Ford, I wish I had the half of the vocabulary that this guy had, but the way he explained. I
wish I had his name.
Oh man, he's an incredible guy. Really, just a really inspirational guy. Works for me now. The way he articulated the product to me, and through the lens of the user journey and the presentation layer of all the data, really hooked me. And then, I went through the interview process. So was fortunate enough to get the job.
And this was how long ago?
This was in
you said early 2022, right?
Yeah, this was in 2022. So
it's not very long.
It was not very long ago. We always make a joke internally at WIZ that like 6 months at WIZ is like 2 years at any other company.
Yeah.
Sure, we made the same jokes over at Datadog when, back in the
dog
20
years.
Yeah,
it's a good problem to have.
It's a great problem to have because you gain so much experience in those times. And anyway, So I joined them. I took a month off between my role at Lacework and then joining WIZ, and I was fortunate enough to get some relaxation time and reset my brain.
Smart, yeah.
Really smart. And joined in July of 2022.
Okay.
So it's been
2.5 years.
Yeah, it's been 2.5, just about 2.5 years. We were at the time about 300 employees.
Wow.
So that was 2.5 years ago. Now we're, like I said before, we're cresting 1,700.
Yeah, no, that's great. Especially during that time period. There's a lot of layoffs. It's been hard for some people to find work. So
exactly.
Maybe that's fortunate for you guys. You get to snatch up a lot of good talent.
We've been very fortunate at the level of talent we've been able to bring on. Because that's the one thing that you can't fake it, right? You can't fake talent.
And it's valuable too. It's like, I don't know, my experience has been hiring the wrong person is more detrimental than not hiring the right person, if you know what I mean.
I think getting over a hiring mistake and resetting takes about 2 years total from when you start the search.
Right, to find the role, yeah.
Yeah, bring them in. You ramp them, you kind of observe the issue. Obviously you're not going to just like see somebody make one mistake and kick them out.
Right.
But you're going to, work with them, coach them up.
It's funny too, because what my experience has been, everyone knows it's so important and everyone's very tough on themselves. Like I don't know anyone that does it at 100% or even 90%. I think 80 is like world class.
For sure.
And everyone's still hard on themselves about like the ones that don't work out. So I always find it like, if you're hitting 80% or so, you're maxing out, and then it's just how fast can you correct the mistakes. And they're not always, it's not bad people, it's just a bad fit.
Right,
that
I agree.
You might not have been able to tell up front.
Right.
And sometimes people don't see it for themselves, sometimes not very quickly, and sometimes not ever.
Right.
For sure. It's difficult too, because like you obviously hired that person for a reason, and then that's usually something you didn't know or didn't foresee, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, what I've found, and I've over the course of I got into leadership when I was at Lacework, and prior to that, I had actually I never thought I was going to be a leader. I had always been this. I'm going to be a career individual contributor and stay close to the technology and I'm all managers or paper pushers, all this stuff. And once I got into being in leadership, I realized that's not true. For one, it can be true if you want it to be, but those aren't the effective leaders normally. And I got addicted to it because it's the highs are so much higher, the lows are definitely lower. But usually with hiring mistakes, I found it's not that they're a bad person. It's normally you missed something in the interview process.
Right.
Yeah, they were maybe a little outside of the profile. You took a risk on them, or they weren't properly enabled by you as a leader. But ultimately, it's a failureship of the leader that hires them.
Yeah, I don't look at it as failure. I feel like it's just inevitable. Like I said, it's impossible to get it 100%.
Yeah,
and I don't say failure in the sense that I say it in the sense that everybody makes mistakes.
Yes, exactly.
Everybody fails at some things sometimes, but you learn from it. And then
how many people do you have under you then?
So right now under my organization, so I have 6 managers that report to me. Each of them have between 5 and 7 people. So my entire,
big team.
It's a huge team. My entire organization spans, so we're just, with 39 because we just onboarded a new person this week.
That's cool though.
You cover all segments as well?
I cover
enterprise,
commercial.
Okay.
Yeah, commercial. So SMB and mid-market.
Got it.
And then I'm across the Americas today.
And what are the other kind of divisions, just to give people an idea of how these things get structured as you grow?
Yeah, so at WIZ, we have 4 segments, 4 go-to-market segments. We have a majors team, an enterprise team, and then a commercial team that's a combination of the SMB market and the mid-market.
Okay.
So our bread and butter is very much in the enterprise motion. We have 45% of the Fortune 100 in our customer base. that's really where we've established our foothold. And the down market motion, the commercial and SMB motion, mid market and SMB, I should say, is relatively nascent. We've been doing it for a little while now. We're getting a lot better at it, but it's just we're not as widespread as a lot of companies.
Do you think that's because the problem isn't as pervasive at that level, or is it more just because you've been focused on enterprise?
We've just been focused on enterprise. Okay. The founders of WIZ, a bunch of brilliant people. They started. They came from Microsoft. That's where they had a company called Adalom that was acquired by Microsoft many years ago.
Okay.
They focused super heavily in like the high enterprise space at Microsoft.
No, it makes sense. I mean, that's, for lack of a better term, that's where the money's at, right?
Correct. And the long established.
And that's where their experience is. It's where it aligned as well.
Right. It's also, I feel like it's so much, especially in the B2B SaaS world that that we're all familiar with. It's so much harder to go up than it is to go down.
It's funny. I think it depends on what the problem is and like when you solve it.
Right.
So like for me at Datadog, I always found our best customers were the ones that we got when they were smaller and then we're scaling if they were a cloud native company because of the problems we were solving.
Totally.
It was actually harder to go to an enterprise and show like immediate value because they weren't typically using enough cloud throughout their entire stack for it to matter as much.
Yeah, I remember.
Obviously that's changed now, but
in the early days, certainly
8-10 years ago.
Yeah. I remember when I was interviewing at Datadog, that was one thing that the hiring manager, Matt Steins, talked to me about. Was he was saying that this enterprise thing at Datadog is a very new motion for us. So we're establishing it, and we want you to come be a part of it. And I was thrilled to be a part of it. And that was a lot of my customers were big financial institutions, and it was a lot of navigating bureaucracy.
Was that a conscious decision to move to commercial from past enterprise experience?
So I like solving problems, and I really get the rush of the transaction, right? I like solving the problems at all scale, whether it's a big, huge bank that's got a problem, or a teeny tiny startup of 5 people that's got a similar problem. It was a conscious decision in the sense that once I started doing the mid-market more and more, and I really started doing that a lot at Lacework, I liked the rush and I liked the transaction.
Do you like the speed of it, just far as you say you're talking about the transaction? I mean, naturally, SMB and mid-market motions they're gonna turn much faster. Did you enjoy that speed?
That's
I do.
What I heard too.
I still do. I really love the velocity. I do love the speed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Because I support go-to-market teams as well, and I find I can relate to both sides. I love when I can like close a deal quickly, and I feel almost like a superhero in that regard, where it's like sometimes people are impressed, like that's the fastest deal we've ever closed. And you're like, you're welcome. But I think the ability to close enterprise deals is more rare, at least in my world, that I feel like that is the one thing I'll never give up. Not because I love it. Dealing with those companies can be very difficult because it's like ego driven a lot, to be honest.
Can be.
That's the part I don't like, I should say. But the value it brings to like a company or a client, I feel is like I could close 1 million mid-market deals. It doesn't equate to like that one big, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's a fair
it's just a different
view.
take.
What I've seen, especially in the world of security, since I've been in this industry, I haven't been in this industry for a terribly long time. Like I was always one of those guys that thought like security is the fun police. I'm not gonna do this, right? But I thought what I saw was in the mid-market, you can really drive top line revenue and through the value of like helping people establish their security program in a kind of a more mature way.
Yeah.
So if you're you're a 10-person SaaS company or whatever, you're trying to establish yourself, and you got a security requirement to go that you need to plug a hole before you can go and sign JP Morgan Chase as a customer.
That's a good point.
That's a company changing customer for these people.
One thing I'm realizing too, sorry, Kim, is are you guys, I don't want to say still, and forgive me if some of my bias shows here, but I always felt, are you guys identifying these companies by, maybe that's the question. How do you identify who's commercial, who's mid-market, who's an enterprise?
There's a what I would call a complicated total addressable market model that the much smarter data scientists figure out than I do.
Okay, so one way, originally a lot of software was sold based on the employee count.
Right.
Because they figured we're selling seat-based licenses. The more, asses there are to fill seats, the more, I guess, total addressable market, at least for that client we have, that's how they would mark them. And I've noticed like sometimes companies are adopting a different model. It sounds like WIZ is. Is that right? Or is it still mostly like the employee size of a company?
So the way that we look at it, and I'm going to caveat this by saying, the data
It's not your decision.
It's not my decision.
Yeah.
The data scientists are making all this. They're the ones making the decisions based on data. But the way that we think about it is the scale of the infrastructure. Which leads to the scale of the problem.
I think the early stages of my career before I, made the smart move and moved into tech, I used to work for Walt Disney.
Let's talk about the mouse.
62,000 employees in Orlando alone, and only at the time that I worked there.
Wow.
There was probably one person who was truly a developer in that whole group. But I mean, that's a really good point, right? I mean, that's probably not true about Disney. There's probably more than that. But the point
Definitely
is
now.
Definitely
now. But even at that time, I mean, they had an online presence. They were definitely doing ticket sales through their online presence. But how much of it was really based on like nobody was using their applications, right? And now everything is run through the application, like the fast passes, like everything that you need to actually go and have a great day at the theme parks happens through the application. But so many companies that are moving towards that model, and companies that have learned from these large enterprises are going straight to that model.
Correct.
To your point. And the addressable market is going to be larger in some of these smaller companies where they do have a lot more technology, building in AI. They're building in all of these other functionality that some of the larger companies honestly are still catching up on. So I do think it's an interesting way to look at how to split
I was
out your
realizing
org.
my own bias was coming through by being like, is that the most exciting customers to work with? Then realizing actually in my own thought, it's more about how you categorize them than what they're called, and different companies may be doing it differently.
Right.
How are you guys doing it? And then realizing in my own career, I found that the middle actually is the most interesting as far as problems to solve.
I think so, because there's very often people that are on like the bleeding edge of the technology. They're the ones that are pushing, and this is well established technology now. But like back in we'll call it back in 2018 when I was working at Google and working with Datadog. There were very few companies that were adopting Kubernetes at the scale that Datadog was adopting it at. Now, similarly with AI technologies, like there's very few companies that are adopting it and really pushing the limits of that technology at the bleeding edge in the enterprise. The majority of them are in the middle.
Is usually the ones that have started and have had success with it.
Right.
But also have enough resourcing to really like play in that
100%.
space, right?
100%.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
And then I think from the selling side of it, like, because as a solution engineer, I work any of you that are listening that aren't familiar with the profession, like we work really closely with sales teams. From the selling side of it, it gives people that maybe don't have the 20-year established career, the Rolodex going to work with the cities and the JP Morgans of the world, opportunities to work on like larger deals that are a bit more complex, but still are more flat organizations and easier to navigate. Because it's not about I went and shook hands with this person who introduced me to this person and introduced me to that person.
It is a little more opportunistic.
You're like the technical shepherd of all of these conversations.
Definitely.
Well, it's fun. I remember when Datadog was launching their mid-market program, me telling a lot of the salespeople, like, get involved. Like, that's the big opportunity right now, because enterprise is a lot of, these deals take forever.
Take a long time, especially then.
Mid-market, it's like you have something they need and they're a bigger company.
Right.
I just thought that was like a really good opportunity, and now I'm realizing, for me, it's been a few years, but
still,
now I just close whatever deals my clients bring me.
Yeah, right. Well, this was you're talking about what, in 2016 when you were at Datadog to like
so
establishing
I joined
this?
then, and we actually just started the enterprise sales department around then. So I joined as at the same time a lot of the first enterprise sellers.
Okay.
Mid-market was probably 2020, 2021, something like that.
Oh, wow. It was a lot later than that.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like a lot of it was because we were too busy. It's like, I know it sounds ridiculous, but there were so many deals
really
that
fast.
There's certain aspects of building the plane while it's flying that makes sense. And then there's others that are like, don't touch that right now. Do you know what I mean? And I think reorganizing sales was a big one of those, which is why I was saying, like, I don't fault them for not reassessing this because getting business wasn't an issue.
But also it worked.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's a weird thing, though. It doesn't mean it couldn't have been better. You just don't have, you know what I mean? You can't take the time to take the risk.
You can't iterate on everything either. You can't. You really can't get so lost in the details that you lose sight of the company's mission.
Exactly.
Fair.
We're going to take a short break to hear from one of our sponsors, but when we come back, we'll learn about how Andrew got into leadership in the solutions engineering space and discuss the thrills of helping other people forward their careers.
This episode is brought to you by NextGen Law. NextGen Law supports today's modern tech companies, bringing expertise in drafting and negotiating customer contracts and scaling of go-to-market legal functions. For more information, visit nextgenlaw.com. That's NextGenLaw with hyphens in between each word.com.
But there is actually something that I wanted to go back to because you kind of glazed over it, but this is such an interesting piece of your story. You just talked about your team and how you have 39 people on your team at this point.
Yeah.
That obviously wasn't the case when there were around 200 or 300 people when you joined the company. Tell me about how you built your team. Tell me about how you scaled that, and tell me about how your challenges changed as your team got larger.
Yeah, this is a great question. So when I joined, my team was, so I split the what is now the commercial segment. It was called the mid-enterprise team at the time with that gentleman Ford that I was speaking about. We split the country kind of sort of down the middle diagonally. I had the like north central area and the northeast. He had the west coast and the southeast. So kind of sweeping from the west down across the bottom of the country.
You split it geographically.
Exactly. So we had each about I'm gonna kick myself for not remembering this exact number, but we had about 5 each at the time. So small team. Mm-hmm. And we were tasked with go find and hire the best. And that's what we did. We went and we interviewed a ton of people. He and I worked together with our recruiting team, our recruiting partner at the time, to establish like, this is the standard we want to hire at. We want to hire people in this profile. We want to hire people that are smart. We want to hire people that are coachable. We want to hire people that are team players, like high character individuals, want to be self-motivated and self-learning. And then people that have some kind of experience with interacting with customers, working with technology, really like understood that you're not just selling bits and bytes, like you're not selling widgets, but you're selling like a value to somebody.
Yeah, not to get too off track. We haven't actually discussed what is solution engineering.
Oh man. Wow.
So maybe just explain quickly so we can understand like
where do we begin with what solutions engineering is? So solutions engineering, how my lovely wife describes it when she's telling people what I do for a living is that the salespeople go in and say, I can give you the moon. And then what my team does is we tell you like, okay, not really, but we can build you a rocket and get you on the way there. Okay. So it's that the salespeople, the really establish and own, business relationships and the business cases when interacting with customers. And from the solutions engineering side, we own the technical relationship. But we are an inseparable part of the sales organization. Right. So we're a service to the business. The sales team is our number one internal customer. And they're buying what we're selling, fortunately. And it's really about going and establishing technical value with our customers that relates to business value, of course.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So I guess feel free to follow on Kim's question now. I just wanted to make sure the audience knows what
Excellent.
type of roles you're hiring.
And like day to day, we do demoing for customers. We run through proof of value exercises with them to make sure that
you show them what the products can do,
what it
for
can
them.
do, and why it matters to them too.
Right.
That's a really important part. Kim, what was your question again?
Well, you went from 0 to 39, right? You were talking about how you split regions with Ford.
Right. Yep.
How did you scale to 39 people on your team? You've got 6 team leads under you. How did you build that? And how did the challenges change from when you were 5 direct reports to 6 leaders that you're managing now?
Yeah. So Ford and I had this split for a good long time, like about 2 years we ran on that. And then earlier in the year, we went through a very big hiring push when we hired our new COO and really kind of established ourselves to make big investments in our go-to-market team. So we opened up, we had a role open up to lead this team, to be the leader at the Americas level. I interviewed for the role and I was fortunate enough to get it and take on the responsibility. And they told me first thing, they were like, go build your team. How are you going to go build it? So how did I go build? I built it by really identifying a lot of high potential individuals internally that could step up into leadership roles and could help do really 3 things. Could help recruit, keep people, hold high standards, hold people to high levels, and onboard people. So recruiting and onboarding, kind of the same thing here. They could enable people. They could teach them, not only teach them technology, but teach them how to be good SEs, and then people that could execute. So they could go and get involved in the customer
if they had to.
The customer life cycle and inside of sales opportunities, and be difference makers in those opportunities.
This is so interesting that you're talking about this with such passion, and I mean that's really good to see. But you just stated earlier that you initially wanted it to be a career IC.
I never thought. Yeah, I never thought.
You talked about there are higher highs and much lower lows. Can you tell us a little bit and tell the audience a little bit about some of those? Yeah, what changed your mind? And also give us some of those highs.
So what changed my mind? So how I got into this role. So I was working at Lacework and I got a call one morning from the CRO at the time there, who said, "Hey, I need to split the region that you're working in, and I want to put a leader in the Northeast. It's either going to be you or it's going to be this guy. I'm giving you first choice." And I said, well, I don't want to work for that guy. So I said, I'll give it a shot. I said, actually, what I really said was, hey, I really appreciate the opportunity. Give me a day to think about it.
How'd you feel?
I felt, first and foremost, I felt really honored that he would think that I had the potential to even do it. I didn't really know what leadership meant.
I think it's usually bestowed on people, to be honest.
I don't want to pretend like I've got there's some innate quality.
No. I mean, someone else sees that you can do it and gives you the opportunity.
Like your inner Jon Snow.
My inner Jon Snow. Yeah, you just kind of become the leader. No, I mean, and now that I'm in the business of hiring and enabling, being a leader of leaders, I agree. It is something that you see it in people, and you want to give them the opportunity to improve themselves and to stretch themselves, and to, quite frankly, teach me things as well. I learn a lot from the team that I've got in place today and from other teams that I've had in place before. So anyway, I got this opportunity to lead this team over at Lacework, and I loved it. I got addicted to it because it was so different than what I had really imagined it was.
What were the parts you enjoyed?
I love recruiting. I'm a really big college football fan, and Nick Saban was. I went to the University of Alabama. I was in school there when Nick Saban became the football coach, and he said to me, I wish he said on a show, recruiting is the secret. It's the secret sauce and the real difference maker in college football is that he can go and recruit. A bunch of 5-star guys. If you're in the NFL, you get 1, maybe 2 first-round picks a year, and that's if you're lucky.
Yeah, it's more democratized.
Exactly. There's a lot more parity across the league. So, what I really take away from that is that if you have the ability to influence your team, it's through recruiting the absolute best talent you can recruit.
Yeah.
But establishing them as a team. So that's the main thing that I love is I love bringing people in and coaching them
So
up.
in your mind, you're just Nick Saban.
I wish. If I had half of his feathered hair, I would love to be Nick Saban. But no, I wish.
No, but I get it. I agree. That's one thing in my career, and you could probably speak to this too. It changed for me is like you realize at some point like I'm established or whatever. You feel good about where you're at. And then you go, wait, and I can use this to help other people. And then that becomes a bit, I would say, addicting. It's something I kind of miss now being on my own. And honestly, something I hope like this podcast is helping other people navigate their careers and stuff. That I always found like very rewarding when it's like to teach someone to fish versus give them a fish or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've definitely seen it in my world, and it's like you do that for somebody and you're like, wow, how do I do it again?
And to Kim's question on what are the highs, what are the lows? The highest high is when you see someone get it.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
When they take the coaching, and maybe they got a little issue, nothing overly concerning, but they've got a little issue. You coach them through it, they apply it, and then they say, "Wow, like oh man, I get it now. Thank you so much." And it's not about the gratitude, but it's about seeing them better themselves and being able to really take themselves to the next level.
Can you give us an example? It doesn't have to be specific, but I'm just wondering if it's as raw as in my world.
So one thing that solutions engineers do is we demo the product a lot, and we do it. I did it at Datadog, did it at Lacework, do it here. We do it dozens of times a week, sometimes dozens of times a day. If one
thing you're not pointing out is how integral it is, because this is like, if you don't do a good job, they're not buying it. Doesn't matter the price. If you don't show that this can help solve a problem for them,
exactly.
So it's not like we just run through the motions. Like,
no,
it's very important.
It's not like a recorded version of whatever.
Correct.
Correct.
It's very bespoke to each customer.
It has to be, because I tell everybody, all the SEs that I ever coach up is like, while we're going through demo training and demo practices, we're not just showing the UI. So you can't just walk through and give a harbor tour and click around. It's because if we wanted to do that, we'd just send them a YouTube video.
Exactly.
Just show it to them,
Exactly.
right? It's about tailoring the conversation to them and about making it real for them.
Yeah.
So to go back to your question about what's an example of this, I give every SE that I've ever coached on this, I do the demo, and inevitably, or they do the demo for me, I should say, inevitably they refer to the product as cool or neat or nifty or some kind of thing.
Right.
And I always have to stop, and I say like, guys, don't call the product cool. The product, enterprise software, isn't cool. I would love it to be cool, because where it's my career.
We're not cool.
We're not. No, enterprise software is not cool. It serves a value.
Yeah,
so if you
true.
change your mindset from, oh, this is a cool piece of technology, to, oh, this is a valuable piece of technology, and that's how you frame it to the audience, it changes the whole tone and the whole conversation, because people aren't going to go and pay sometimes hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for something that's cool. They're not going to go and say that to their CFO when they're trying to make a business case.
That's a good point. Yeah. It's funny too, because I think I was right. What I was thinking of in my world is like, I specifically help people get better offers when they're getting a job. And that feels really good, because the value is obvious. It's like dollars, but it's also more unlocking their way of viewing themselves.
Right.
They didn't think they were worth that much.
Right.
And I'm going, I think you can get it, actually. You just got to kind of rethink the way that you're looking at yourself, and then make your employer do the same. Mm-hmm. And I find it to be, it's not hard with the right people if they trust you. And that to me is like the other rewarding part, is that you can only help people through coaching if they trust you.
Right.
So like that reciprocation is very cool when you see like, hey, when you do open up, this stuff works. Because at least for me, like the stuff that I'm talking about, I just believe it's like law.
Right.
It's like, if you're good at what you do and you listen to these things that I know, it's not because I'm great or just the way it works.
We're taking a short break, and when we come back, we'll learn about Andrew's untraditional path into tech and his unique insight into what makes New York so special. And don't worry, we finally get to that Brooklyn pizza plug.
How do you get into tech?
Terrible. So I grew up like kind of loving to tinker, right? I loved video games. Actually, like I asked to I remember this when I was really young. I asked my mom to teach me how to read so that I could play video games, because like I could see the colors moving around on the screen. I could see that it like reacted to the controller. I just didn't know what was going on. Mm-hmm. So I was like, hey, I want to learn how to read so I could play this game. So her, being the great person that she is, like took time out of her day to teach me how to read so that I could go and rot my brain with video games when I was 6.
How old were you?
5. I was probably 5, maybe 4. I was young. Like
I remember the day I learned to read.
Yeah, you remember the day you learned to read?
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible.
What was the first thing you read?
It was a book about trucks.
Book about trucks?
Thought he was going to say it was a law book.
About my childhood, but I remember that pretty good.
You remember? Wow.
It was the day before kindergarten started.
Wow. Just so that you could go into your kindergarten class and show everybody.
I don't know
and be
why
like, yo, I read this whole novel.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you just wanted to flex on everyone. Like, I don't see this book.
I don't, unlike you, I do not remember the motivation, but I do remember like the
shutting
feeling
in the
of
back of that book and
accomplishment,
be like, I'm
honestly.
done.
Yeah, going like, I'm going to read forever now. I'm going to read forever now.
Like, trucks are red.
Yeah, trucks are red. Trucks are red. So okay, so I always loved technology. I never thought I wanted to be an engineer. I don't know like why not. I think it was just some emotional immaturity or just some kind of defiance in me when I was a dickhead 17-year-old, like most 17-year-olds are. And yeah, of course, everyone. So I never thought that this is what I would end up doing. And again, really like bad time for the economy. Mm-hmm. So I was taking some like graduate courses at like a local school in my hometown in Montgomery. And I was working in geographic information systems. So like basically that's fancy for using computers to build maps, right? It was just, clicking around building maps. I got an internship in that. And I worked for a state government agency. Basically working for the Criminal Justice Information Center there. So it's like tech support for the state troopers, more or less. And the first day, they walked me into a little mini data center, and they said, they pointed me at a Blade server, and they said, well, here's your server. And I said, well, I don't know how to do any of this. So I had to go and figure it out. So I went home. I didn't go home that day. I went to the bookstore, again, dating myself. Like I actually went to a physical bookstore and I bought myself a book on Linux administration.
Wow.
And I read it. And I sat there and I read the manual and I brought it to work with me so I could figure out how to do anything. Like I didn't know what I was doing.
Well, I have so much respect for you, though. I mean, like, you really took it upon yourself to find all that out, and it's funny that you.
I don't really have a choice.
Well, see, that's what we were talking about earlier. Like, you went and you made yourself an independent learner by necessity.
Yeah.
It's funny too, because like we meet each other later in our careers that you don't know the origin story.
Right.
It's like I would not have guessed that.
You know what? This is such a fun, unconventional origin story
for
too.
You to be like, I've been an engineer.
No. I like what I found out though is that I was not a very good engineer. But what I was really good at was trying to figure out, like, I was so much more interested in the why than in the how.
Yeah.
So much more interested in that. And that was what I really cared about. I was always like, hey, why are we doing this when, like, this is the established norm? Or, like, we could do it way better this way. And, like, when you work for a state government, they don't really like that. So,
but they have the problems.
Exactly. They have all the problems. So I found out about this role, solutions engineering, and I went and worked at a really like small local systems integrator in Cleveland, Ohio.
Do you move to Ohio for a job?
I picked up and moved to Ohio, and it turned out to be probably the single most important decision I ever made in my life, because I established my career. For one, like the beginnings of my career. And then I met my wife.
I was just going to ask, it's got to be what happened there.
Yeah, I met the woman that became my wife. And that was really 11 years ago. And, I've been going ever since.
Cleveland's the city of love.
Cleveland is the city. Cleveland rocks, man. Drew Carey was right. And I was at the company I was working at the time. I was a cloud solutions engineer. Like nobody knew what cloud. This is 2014.
Especially in Cleveland.
Yeah, people couldn't.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Yeah, right. Like people couldn't spell GCP or AWS in that area at the time. Like nobody.
I didn't know what it was.
Nobody knew what it was. Yeah. So I mean, and I barely knew what it was. I was just like, they kind of threw me into that and said like, hey, do you think we can do something with this? And I was like, yeah, let's go figure it out. So anyway, I had been working in that space. I'd been doing that role for about 6 months, and I was loving it. Like I thought that the technology was at the time, before I developed the pet peeve of calling technology cool, I thought it was cool. I was like, oh, you can get a virtual machine in like a second. You click a button and you have a computer. Cool. It's great. It's great. But I was working from home for those 2 weeks, and when what some people do when they work from home is they browse the internet instead of doing their work. And I saw a listing for a job at Google on their cloud team, and I was like, oh, this is great. So I applied, and I didn't think I would ever get that job. Like I was like, oh, this is a hope and a prayer. Like, Google's where they only hire Stanford grads, and it still had that kind of mystique at the time. And I ended up interviewing and getting the job, and they said, well, when can you move to New York? And I was like, I guess, when do you want me there? So they gave me like 3 weeks to pack up my life there and move to New York. Fortunately, I have some family in the area, so I could come and stay with them for a little while, but establish my home base, and I just packed up and moved my life here.
And now she's your wife.
Yeah.
Then she came with you, or was there?
She came with. So there was about a 6 month. So she's an accountant. So the busiest time of year for them is the beginning of the year, obviously ahead of year ends and tax season and all that. So she spent about 6 months in Cleveland to go through a busy season.
Yeah, just pointing out, like
transfer.
Going, hey, pack up your life and move in 3 weeks is not.
By the way,
some people say, sorry, I don't have that ability, or I'm not. But you said no for this opportunity. It's worth it. I
said, I told her, I remember when I had this conversation with her, I was like, this is a career making opportunity for me. Yeah. Like I have to take it. I said, I really want you to come with me. And she was like, okay. And she did. And it was fantastic. She works for a large firm, so she just transferred.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's been really great for her career as well. She's, she's a partner at the firm that she works at now. So her career really rocketed when she moved to New York.
This is a good place to skyrocket careers.
Oh, I 100% agree. And I mean, I know that nobody could see our faces, but Aaron and I were grinning from ear to ear as
the camera's right here.
I mean, not for whoever's just listening. Right. But I mean, that's just such a Cinderella story in terms of getting into Google. Yeah. It's so unconventional, and just hearing about how excited you were to get that opportunity. And I think shooting your shot, that can be really scary too. Like not having the traditional resume to go into an interview with Google. Right. I mean, how did that feel? I mean, definitely intimidating. Like I really had, especially when
they ask you like those questions that everyone is told.
No. So they don't ask you the questions of like
the manhole cover.
They didn't at the time. I don't know. Maybe they've changed their interview processes now, but like they didn't ask the questions of like how many golf balls fit in an overhead bin of a plane or whatever. They do ask questions trying to figure out your intelligence, right? They called them at the time like a general cognitive ability.
Do you remember any?
I very vividly remember this interview. I was being interviewed by
and then Kim's going to answer them.
I'm going to ask you all the questions. I was being interviewed by a gentleman named Andy Milo is his name. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. Super just like positive guy. He was the leader of the Americas team at the time. He was the one who interviewed me, and the questions they ask they're like, if you had to open a bakery, walk me through your entire thought process on how you would open the bakery. Right, it's right up your alley, Kim. I think you could crush this question.
No, we don't have an hour, so we're not going to go into it.
But. It was an hour long. I did give an hour long answer though, and I remember coming. I was sick with the flu at the time, and I didn't want to reschedule these interviews because the process there was so long. But I had so much adrenaline.
Did you come to New York for that?
No, I did those ones remotely, fortunately, because I couldn't. I wouldn't have come if I was sick.
I mean, your car still didn't have wheels on it.
My car didn't have tires on it. Exactly. No, by that time I had gotten my tires, fortunately. But my I remember I did the interview, and he gave me some immediate. He was like, "Great job," and that was all. I was like, I was so over the moon. I felt real good because it's just like, again, the mystique of a place like Google at the time was so huge that getting any kind of positive feedback in that was
for sure.
It was like a high.
So you moved to New York for Google.
Yeah.
What's the role again?
So it was a solutions engineering job for on the cloud team. So I had massive imposter syndrome when I got here. Like I thought I was like decent at.
And what year was this?
This was 2000, end of 2015, beginning of 16.
Cool. So that's a great time to be.
An awesome time.
A good time. Yeah. It's a really good time to be like moving here. Great time to be like getting into that industry.
Well, and it was like as cloud was getting a real foothold.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So I was on a team there were 6 of us in New York, which is crazy to think about now.
At a company like Google.
There was six SEs, like solution. We were called customer engineers, but it's just a title difference. And I remember hearing some of these guys talk through the technology on customer calls. I'm thinking like, I'm never going to get to the level of these guys. So especially this one guy, he's still working over at Google. His name is Wilton Wong. So shout out Wilton. This guy knows more about like Linux and systems than I think he's forgotten more than I'll ever learn.
I feel like you need to write a movie about your life, not because of
I
your
don't think
life,
so. It's
but
not that
the
exciting.
people's names you keep bringing up are total like character names.
I just like
Ford and Wilton.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm so fortunate to like interact with all these incredible people. And it's like, that's the thing about not only about New York, but about like the industry is that, we talk about how small it is.
100%.
It's like, it's so great. And, I'm not one of these guys that thinks we're doing, we're not special in any way. We just like, we got the right education at the right time and picked the right field. And it's like, it's great that we get to work with smart people.
As my career progresses, I find I'm more fortunate than skilled.
Much more. Yeah. A lot more luck and hard work than skill, I would say. And for me anyway, definitely.
Okay, so you were talking about something that I think can lead us into one of our like segments, which is like, is there any like quote or motto that you found influential or like model behavior after? Like a mantra or something?
I think there are. I'm fortunate to have worked with so many like really amazing people that it's really difficult to pick just one of these things. But like one thing that I was actually talking to somebody about this the other day, one thing that I always come back to is actually it's the CTO of Datadog, Alexei. He's also founder and CTO. He was giving a talk to the solutions engineering organization there in, I want to say it was early 2020, maybe it was late 2019. And somebody asked him a question of if you could engineer anything in the world, like no restrictions, no time, like time restrictions, infinite resources, what would it be? And he said both of you know Alexei pretty well, in his only the way he could say it is engineering outside of the restriction of a customer value is worthless. And that like to this day echoes in my mind constantly of like, it goes back to the, it's not cool, it's not neat, it's not nifty, it's valuable conversation of like, if you got to be constantly thinking about that and establishing this of like, are like in everything that you do is like, are we providing value to a customer in how we're approaching this problem? Like, is it providing value? Is it solving a problem?
All right. So
you need to know what it means?
One thing we do like to talk to everyone about is like, what are your favorite things about NYC? Like what makes New York special to you? And I think it's a cool point of view because we don't get many guests from Alabama. Well, honestly, you've lived multiple places. I feel like a lot of people in tech come from here or the West Coast.
Yeah. I mean, what I love about New York is that no matter where you're from, I guess probably some natives would disagree with me on this point, but no matter where you're from, you could be from, Alabama, you could be from, Uzbekistan, you could be from Jersey, you could be from Canada, you could be from anywhere in the world. You come to New York City, you establish your life here, you contribute to the city, to the culture, and you really you embrace the city, and you give back. Like you can become a New Yorker. Like, I don't think
That's a good point.
there's nowhere else in the world. You move to Berlin from some other city in Germany, right? No matter how many years you're there,
the whole time.
you're a foreigner forever. You're never going to be a Berliner. But like, if you're here and you don't treat it like it's a playground, like you don't just like extract from the city, but you give back, you work, and you contribute to it, like you will become, you can become a New Yorker.
I mean, that makes it great. You're definitely right. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, so this has always been the city to me.
Right.
And I would agree. Like, that's my point of view. It's not, are you from here? It's just, how long have you been here?
Exactly.
And like, there is a period where it's like, especially because I'm not from Manhattan, like maybe you're more of a New Yorker than I am.
I don't know. I live in Brooklyn now, so I don't know.
Yeah,
but my point, I think what you're saying is true. Versus like the town I grew up in, it's always going to be like, oh, you didn't grow up here.
Exactly. You're always going to be from somewhere else. But like, it's such a polyglot city, and it's so again, some native New Yorkers might hate me for this, but like it's evolving constantly. Like, it's never gonna be the same city year over year over year.
Actually, I disagree. And
you disagree?
That's okay.
Okay,
No, I do. I
I'm
disagree.
happy.
I disagree
Happy to-
because I think that exactly what you're saying is what makes New York
of course.
so
That's what I'm saying.
amazing for people to move to, is because I don't think that a lot of native New Yorkers, I mean, I'm sure there's a subset of them
You're right.
that do
People
feel
don't
that
look
way.
down on you just because you moved here. Yeah.
But I think that I think they do agree that the city's always evolving. I actually think that they appreciate the diversity that comes in from other places. And people who are transplants here are only transplants as long as they keep labeling themselves as transplants.
It's true. It's
and the
more
moment you
self.
start saying that I'm a New Yorker, you're a New Yorker. Like, I felt that way for a long time when I moved from.
You're right.
I
No
moved
one
from the West
argues
Coast.
with you.
Right. Nobody argues with me like I'm a New Yorker. Like, oh yeah, you're a New Yorker. Doesn't matter what you sound like, what you look like, or what you do. If you live here and you breathe here and you give back, like you said, you're a New Yorker.
Exactly.
And I actually think that native New Yorkers, I am married to one, a
There you
native
go.
New Yorker. Native New Yorkers, I think, really appreciate that. And I think that's part of why people feel so integrated into the communities here, is because there isn't that level of exclusivity that does exist in other places. Exactly.
And you can be a part of it, right? And people want you to be a part of it. You can if you're giving back, as long as you're not having an extractive relationship with the
Right.
city.
I love that
right?
answer.
Yeah,
Oh,
me too.
thanks, man.
That's a cool, like, big answer. Is there any more like,
I love living in Brooklyn. I love living in Greenpoint, man. Like, I think it's such a great neighborhood. I love, like, my wife and I are both big foodies. So like, the fact that you can get any kind of food anytime, day or night is huge for us.
Greenpoint's also got such a great food scene.
Oh man, it's
It's got a lot of accolades in the last year or two.
We've lived there for 4 years now, and it's every like cool new restaurant is coming in Greenpoint.
Yeah,
It's
everything's
great.
booming there.
Everything is booming. Yeah, I mean, the newest place that I'm like obsessed with right now. It's not on my block, but it's shortly off my block. It's Chrissy's Pizza on Nassau Avenue. Like, I'm not trying to blow up the spot or anything, but this place.
we're gonna get them to sponsor the show. This is great.
This place, there's a line out the door every single day. You got to wait.
That's why I know I'm old. I'm like, oh, I'm not going.
No, you gotta wait on the line. Like, you gotta wait on the line for like 45 minutes to get this pizza.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna hire a TaskRabbit.
It's probably a smart idea, actually. I wanted to not like it, man, because I was like, yo, this hype is probably bullshit, whatever. And then I had it, and like, the first words that were out of my mouth were like, holy shit, this dude is ripping some pizzas. So shout out Chrissy's Pizza in Greenpoint. The place is awesome.
That's what I'm trying to uncover. I know New York's great. I want to know, where do I go to eat? You know? All right. Well, Andrew, Kim, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, Aaron, Kim, thank you so much for having me. This is great.
No
It's
doubt.
a really great conversation.
And we'll put in the show notes, where to check out WIZ and their products and whatnot.
All right, killer. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Empire State of Grind. If you like what you heard, please share, like, and subscribe. You can find more information about the guests and sponsors in the show notes, and special thanks to our sponsors and our producer, Brian Neiman. We'll be back with new episodes twice a month, and as we say in New York, peace, we out.